We all know what it feels like to be sick. You catch a cold, get a fever, and spend days resting in bed. But plants get sick too. Instead of sneezing, an ill plant might suddenly start wilting, or its leaves might begin to decay. The science dedicated to figuring out exactly why plants get sick is called plant pathology. It is the official study of the living organisms and environmental factors that make our crops ill. You can think of this field like a massive hospital for crops. Here, experts act as specialized doctors. Their daily job is to examine patients, diagnose the symptoms, and identify the microscopic attackers causing the problem. These attackers target every part of the plant, from the roots in the soil up to the leaves and fruit. You might see a plant that stays mysteriously tiny despite having plenty of water, a sign of stunting. Or you might see parts of the plant turn black and shriveled, as if they're rotting away. That's necrosis. There is a major difference in the stakes here compared to human medicine. A sick plant cannot take a sick day. When a crop is unable to function properly, it can't grow as much food, which directly reduces its value to the farmer and the community. Because of this, managing plant disease is an essential practice that directly dictates the size, the quality, and ultimately the price of the food you buy at your local market. To treat those sick plants, doctors have to look closely at the culprits. We need to zoom in on the actual germs causing the damage. This chart compares the shapes and sizes of different plant pathogens. First up are fungi. These are complex organisms with organized cells, much like our own. They protect themselves with a tough, shell-like outer layer and grow in long, branching threads. To spread, they release millions of tiny seeds called spores. Next are bacteria. These are much simpler, single-celled units. Instead of a shell-like exterior, they have a mesh-like wall protecting them. They don't bother with spores. They just clone themselves, splitting in two over and over again to grow their numbers. Then we get down to the absolute smallest scale, viruses and viroids. These don't have cell walls at all. Because they cannot survive on their own, they act as microscopic hijackers. They invade a plant's cells and force the plant's own internal machinery to make copies of the virus. To finish the chart, we have nematodes, which are microscopic parasitic worms, and a strange group of bacteria that lack a wall entirely. Because they have no rigid shell, these shapeshifters can squeeze into almost any space inside a plant. Recognizing these traits, the size, the structure, and what these germs are made of is the first step. A plant doctor must know exactly what they are dealing with before they can prescribe the right treatment. Identifying the germ is only half the battle. We also need to understand its ecology, or the specific conditions it needs to survive. Every pathogen has its own favorite temperature and level of oxygen. Fungi, for instance, are very sensitive to their surroundings. They thrive when the soil is slightly acidic, and they rely on high moisture. When the air gets very humid, it acts as a signal, telling fungal spores to wake up and start spreading across the field. When conditions get tough, these pathogens are expert survivalists. They can hide out in the soil or dead plant scraps during the winter. Once it warms up, they spread by riding the wind, flowing in water, or hitchhiking on insects. This map shows the massive impact of these microscopic attackers. Every single year, plant diseases destroy an estimated 10 to 15% of all global crop production. The damage is not felt equally everywhere. In developing countries where farmers might have less access to modern tools and medicines, the devastation can be much worse, sometimes resulting in up to a 50% loss of their harvest. This chart shows the toll on specific staples. We lose 15 to 25% of the world's potatoes to disease every year, and between 30 and 50% of all bananas. When you lose that much of a basic food source, the harm spreads far beyond the farm. It creates food shortages in those regions and makes it much harder for countries to trade with one another. Let's bring this back to the farm. When we see healthy, vibrant crops like this, we're looking at the result of active disease management. Keeping a farm healthy is expensive. Farmers often have to spend up to 30% of their total budget on protective treatments, like medicines that kill off bacteria and fungi before they can take hold. These costs are necessary because even a mild sickness is a disaster for a farmer. If a crop is spotted or misshapen, it loses its quality and becomes much harder to sell, even if it's technically still alive. This is where the plant pathologist comes in. By studying the life cycle of a germ, they find the exact moment it is most vulnerable. This allows farmers to intercept the disease early, using the right treatment at the right time, or choosing seeds that have been bred to naturally resist that specific attacker. By identifying these threats and providing the strategies to stop them, plant pathology acts as an invisible shield that keeps our global food supply safe and steady. The next time you walk through a grocery store, take a look at the shelves. Every healthy, affordable piece of produce you see is a direct victory won by the science